Grandmother can't accept I am an adult and oversteps boundaries. Am I overreacting? I am not sure if this is the right place to post this. I feel super conflicted. My 25F grandmother 69F can't accept the fact that I am grown and acts entitled to my children. She's genuinely nice most of the time, but there are things she does frequently that really aggravate me. For some backstory, I am the first grandchild and definitely the favorite, not saying this to brag at all, trust me, my mom had me when she was 17, and my bio dad nor any of his family ever had anything to do with me. This meant that she's the only grandmother I ever had until my mom married my stepdad when I was 8. My mother and I lived with my grandmother up until that point. Even after we moved out, I would still visit her or spend the night with her all the time for years. I sort of slowed down on visiting all of the time when I began college because I had a full-time job as well. For the past few years, I will typically see her maybe once or twice a month. Each time I talk to her or visit, will make comments about how she's sad that I don't spend the night with her anymore or visit as much, despite me being a 25-year-old married woman with 2 kids on the way and a job. She complains that I don't call her enough, but the phone goes both ways. She, in her words, sits at home and does nothing all day, so why would she not think to call her family members? Despite my age, she still treats me as a literal baby. She will occasionally start rubbing my, singing rub it and pat it, which is something she used to do when I was a baby. Every time she does it I jump and move forward, and she'll say, "Oh, don't act like that. You used to laugh and laugh when I would do that," and he'll say, "Yeah, when I was a toddler, I am 25 now." And she'll say, "You're always going to be grandma's baby," and he'll rub it and pat it whenever I want and laugh. One time, my grandmother, mom, sister, and I all went on vacation. We shared one hotel room with 2 beds. My sister was in the bathroom and I wanted to change, so I told my mom and grandmother to not look my way because I was changing clothes. My grandmother said, "I am gonna look." So I was like, "Why?" and uncomfortably laughed. She said, "It's not like I haven't seen you naked before." Again, I reiterated, "Well, that's when I was a kid, I am an adult now." And she just laughed. It's like in her eyes I never aged past 10 years old. She will be shocked and stunned when I dislike something that I used to not be a fan of when I was a child. For example, I used to hate salads as a kid, but in my 20s I eat them all the time. She refuses to believe I really like salads because 15 years ago I didn't. When she is finally convinced, she gets sad, and says things like, "I can't believe I don't even know what my girl eats anymore," which I know isn't a huge deal, but paired with everything else it's just another thing that really irks me. Anyways, when I announced I was pregnant with twins, I announced it to all of my grandparents at once in person, my stepdad's parents and my grandmother. Once I did this, my grandmother shrieked with joy and began sobbing. She literally got in my step-grandmother's face, pointing, saying, "Those are my babies, you hear me?" My step-grandmother just sort of stood there and said, "Well, I guess I should be congratulating you then," and my grandmother says they're more like my grandbabies than great-grandbabies, since I raised Op and she's more like a daughter. My mother gets a little uncomfortable by this because while I did live with her for the first 8 years of my life, this doesn't replace my grandmother as my mother. My mother later asked me who I wanted to be at the hospital when I gave birth. My grandmother interrupted me and said, "I will be at the hospital, just to let you know." I just looked at her wide-eyed and said, "I didn't say you couldn't come to the hospital," and she said, "Oh, I know, I am just saying, I will be there." This has amplified throughout my pregnancy. Shush. E refers to my children as her babies. She tells me I should do certain things, such as carry a 5-pound duffel bag, because I am hurting her babies. My mother, grandmother, and I went baby clothes shopping and there was a shirt that said "Mama's Boys" or something like that, and she pointed it out and said, "You don't even need to worry about buying a shirt like that. They're going to be Grandma's boys, so I am settling that right now." She even refers to them as her babies to other people. I was at her house with my mom and my great-aunt called my grandmother. My great-aunt asked, "Have you had your babies yet?" And my mom, stunned, asked what? My grandmother turned and pointed to my stomach and said, "My babies?" and began rubbing my stomach. She even began saying, in front of my mom who is the actual grandma, "This is your grandma. You hear me, grandma?" Sometimes, instead of acting super entitled, she'll switch and act like she's outcasted. She will say things like, "I sure hope you let me see these boys at least sometime. I would be so sad if you didn't for no reason." I have never stated that I would withhold them from her, but she acts like I am never going to let her see them out of the blue. All in all, the reason why I find it hard to set boundaries with her and why I feel so guilty is because my grandfather passed away when I was 18. They were together 40 years, and I know she misses him dearly. She lives all by herself and I understand that she is very lonely. She said that my kids have given her a purpose again, and she's excited to feel needed again. Which is a big thing for her. Example, she got sad when my little sister got her first car because she wouldn't need her anymore to take her to school. She has done a lot for me and my family, and while I do love her a lot, these things she does really drive me up a wall. It's like she's trying to take the place of both my mother and I when it comes to my children. She lives completely in the past, and it seems like she almost resents the fact that I am an adult and need to be treated with respect. She wasn't like this at all before my grandfather died, so I know it has to be something caused by grief. I just need to know, am I overreacting by being uncomfortable and annoyed by all of these things? My mom gets annoyed with her a lot so she understands, but my stepdad tells me I am being too sensitive. Edit. Thank you all so much for your input. I really do appreciate all angles I've heard, but I am just too overwhelmed to respond to everyone, but to answer some questions and clear things up. She does not like animals, so getting her a pet is out of the question. She does have church friends, but she doesn't see them all the time, and she doesn't really have any interest in hobbies other than playing the piano. She's a Southern woman who got married really young and never really saw herself as other than mom and then grandma. She misses my other cousins dearly, but she doesn't see them as her own kids because they never lived with her. So she's a bit more understanding as to why they're not super close to her like they used to be. Plus they live hours away while I live about 30 to 45 minutes away depending on traffic. My uncles and even my mother would sometimes joke that I was the youngest sibling, but they were never serious. I can't help but think that maybe my grandma took that to heart and thinks that my own mother doesn't even see me as a daughter. As for setting boundaries, yes, this is something I am fully prepared to do. I am actually having my baby shower soon and I am going to be announcing my boundaries for the hospital and how to treat my sons in general. No kissing, no one other than my husband in the delivery room, and when I am done with visitors I am done. I actually would prefer to see my whole extended family in the hospital because they'll only stay for a short amount of time and leave. I have a huge family, and 95% of us have stayed in the same area since the 1800s. I am talking third cousins and beyond. So everyone is relatively close and always wants to see the new babies. If I postpone visiting until I am out of the hospital, they'll want to stay for much longer and I just would rather have that alone time at home. I am excited for them to meet my sons, don't get me wrong, but if I am being honest, a 15-minute visit in the hospital is much better than an hour stay at my house. I am quite introverted lol. As for my grandma's actions and behaviors, I feel like a lot of people on this sub might have the wrong idea about her. I know a lot of you have probably dealt with very narcissistic family members that genuinely don't care about how they make others feel, so when you see the boundary stomping and entitlement that my grandma is displaying, a bunch of red flags start flying. Which I understand, and maybe I am just naive to how these kinds of people really act. However, my grandma has always been a saint of a lady. She genuinely loves her family very much, and we all used to be so close. She lost her husband, my grandfather, at a time when everyone was in a transitional period in their lives. I was in college and working full-time. My cousins were either moving away or hit the teenager phase of needing to be with friends. 247. My younger sister was in extracurricular activities that required a lot of family traveling, and my uncles both started working night shift jobs around that time. Regardless, we would try and make as much time for her as possible, but eventually everyone had to get back to their lives. So she essentially went from having 4 or 5 visits at her house throughout the week and always being in the company of my grandfather, to dwindling down to 4 or 5 visits a month and being completely alone the other times. It is very heartbreaking. That's why I have given her a lot of grace throughout the years with the guilt tripping, the boundary pushing, and treating me like a kid, because those were some of the best times of her life, and now she's living through the worst time of her life. She started behaving this way shortly after he passed away, so I doubt she's a narcissist or means bad by any of this. I know a lot of this behavior comes from wanting to feel more included, so she's inserting herself into my life even more so because she knows new babies are coming and typically moms want help. However, I do agree with this sub that she is taking it way too far. There's a difference in being excited for great-grandbabies versus quite literally claiming them as your own children. You also can't force yourself into someone's life, because that will begin to build resentment, as it has for me. I never used to feel this way about her, but now every time I see her I just feel so annoyed. I only visit her because I feel bad for her at this point, but that's because all she does is live in the past or guilt trip. All in all, I am going to set some ground rules for myself and my sons. I have to. I have never been the best for standing up for myself, but as an upcoming mother I have grown a spine for them. Thank you all again for your input.